We had some rain last night. It's the first rain that we've had since November. It's now the middle of April, and it's always lovely when this happens to really refresh the whole atmosphere. We can see the mountain clearly, the sky is clear and free of haze, and our garden is just jumping with joy. It's looking so happy this morning. So the other thing that means is that it is time to harvest the bamboo, because at this time of the year, when there's been so little rain, there's been no rain, like I said, since November, it's been so dry. And so this means that the stored nutrients in the bamboo rhizome underneath the soil is pretty much depleted. It's been sucked up. The bamboo's been using this to keep itself sustained, to keep itself alive during this very, very dry time of the year. And because those nutrients are now depleted, it means that when we cut the bamboo, when we harvest the bamboo, it is not going to be so attractive to the bugs that like to come and feed on it, because what the bugs are looking for, what they can smell, is the nutrients in the bamboo. But now that that's been depleted, it's the best time to cut it so they'll not be so attracted. Each bamboo pole that I cut, I will leave it standing for a while. I'll leave it there for a week or so before I trim it, before I move it, just to allow any nutrients that are still there to be really used up well. And this year I'm going to harvest my bamboo a little bit differently. I will still cut it to length and soak it in my borax and boric acid solution, but I'm also going to be keeping the thinner branches that come off the bamboo. So these branches like this here, in the past I've just trimmed them and burned them or used them for biochar or just tossed them away. But we've got so many of them, and I'm always kind of a little bit sort of hesitant to just trash them, because they are quite firm, they're quite strong, and there's got to be a way of using them. So I have done some research and discovered that these thinner pieces, I'm just looking for some longer ones, these pieces here are so hard and so strong. So what I'm going to do is trim the leaves off them and little side branches and things like that, and then keep them and soak them as well in the borax and boric acid to preserve them, and then I will make use of those in some other ways. I've been doing some research. I've discovered some information online that shows how the Japanese will quite often make good use of these thinner pieces for privacy screens and things like that. So once I have trimmed them and preserved them, I will make good use of these in as many different ways as I can. To make a start with harvesting our bamboo, I'm going to choose the poles that I want to cut. So I'm going to mark them. I'll tie something around them to mark them, because I don't want to harvest them all at the same time. I'll do it progressively, partly because it's a big job and partly because I can't soak it all at once. I've got a limited amount of space that I can use within my setup to soak the bamboo in the borax and boric acid. So I'll start by cutting them, and then just today I'll leave them standing for half a week or a week or so, and then come back and bring them down and trim them and begin the process of soaking what I've harvested. And by soaking it, this helps to preserve the bamboo. I've got a video on my channel about how I do this, so if you want to learn how to preserve your bamboo once you've harvested it, please go and have a look at that video. The best poles to harvest are the older ones, so at least 3 years old or older. And you can tell these ones because they're a darker colour and a bit splotchy. They've got some lichen or mould on them usually. The younger ones have a whitish powder on them still, and they have some of the sheaves around the bottom of the poles as well. And so once they're a little bit more mature, they're harder, they'll last longer, and they're stronger. So these are the ones that I want to cut. And because our bamboo is now only about 6 years or 6.5 years old, it's also easier to spot the older culms because they are quite often narrower. So I'm looking for those signs. So a little bit dark, a little bit blotchy, don't have the white powder, and maybe a little bit skinnier, a little bit thinner than some of the other newer ones. And so the clumps that I'm most interested in are the bigger, heavier clumps, so the ones with more columns per clump, because it's always best not to harvest more than 10 or 20% of a clump, because if you take too much from a clump, it's going to inhibit the growth. It's going to possibly stall the new growth coming through. I don't expect any new growth this month with the beginning of the rains, but maybe into May and certainly into June we'll be seeing some new growth. And I definitely don't want to interrupt this growth. Now, a situation like this where things are pretty tight, there's a bunch of old columns in here that I'd like to take out, but I'm not sure how easy that's going to be, because I won't be able to get my saw down there so well, but that's alright, we'll give it a try, because I'd like to thin this clump out a little bit. It's quite thick and it's kind of encroaching onto the driveway a little bit, so we'll take a few of these out and see how we go. So that one there was right at the edge of the clump, and it's fairly substantial, and it wasn't being held in by its branches, so I've decided just to pull it down now, because if we get a strong wind it's going to come down and hit something, and I don't want that to happen. So rather than leave it up there to dry, I'll just leave it sitting for a few days and then come back to it and trim it. Example of one of the thinner pieces, the branches off the main culm that I'm going to save and make use of this year. So as you can see, it's got a reasonable amount of length to it here, and at the end it's still got some leaves on it. This one, a lot of the leaves, as you can see, a lot of the leaves are on the ground everywhere, but the bamboo still retains some to keep photosynthesizing even right through the dry season. But yeah, this year I want to try and make use of some of these thinner pieces and see what we can do with them. I've cut a few of the pongs today. It's a good start to this year's harvest. Ones like this that are securely in place, I'll leave them standing there. The one that I cut that was too near the edge, I'll just leave that lying on the driveway for a couple of days and then start tidying it up. And I mentioned earlier in the video about what I'll do next, and that is once I've trimmed them and cut them to length, I will soak them in a solution of borax and boric acid, and this will help preserve them. So if you'd like to learn more about how to do that, please check out this video here and keep watching, because in a week or so I'll make another video about what I'm doing to trim them and to save those branches that I want to keep this year. Thanks for watching another video from the Suan Sook Homestay YouTube channel.